People say not to fall in love with what you create. You'll end up hurt. They say approach it practically, measure it against time, money, resources, look at it objectively. But I say if you don't put love into what you create, you're never going to innovate. I run an online video magazine which brings to the forefront lifestyle pioneers who lead lives differently, much like some of the speakers who are coming and speaking. So the stories we talk about are around contemporary lifestyle and culture. Today, I'll take you through my journey, which will unravel to you my roots to innovation. Before one goes out into the paths unknown, one must truly understand where he belongs and where he comes from. I come from a small town called Anantapur. How many of you all know where Anantapur is? Thought as much. So Anantapur is a town which is 2 hours north of Bangalore. Here's the funny thing. People from Anantapur can reach the Bangalore airport faster than the Bangalore residents themselves. So my father owned a poultry and a horticulture farm in Anantapur, and while growing up in my infant years, my only friends were the farmers' kids. I used to run around naked in the fields and take dumps in the open, thinking I was He-Man, that being my favorite cartoon character. So my parents were worried. They wanted to send their He-Man son to civilization, and they decided to take me to Bangalore and leave me at an Anglo-Indian lady's house for me to get civilized. I was only 4 when this happened. Coming to think of it, had my parents not done this, I wouldn't be here today speaking in front of you. I had dreamers for parents who sent me to amazing boarding schools and colleges across the country. So when you go to boarding schools in such a tender age, you tend to forge some very strong friendships because you're cut off from the outside world and you're inside these 4 walls. So your friends become your family. And you tend to have a lot of influence over each other. Next up, I signed up for a lot of creative activities in school, which is where the seeds were sown for me to do my creative storytelling. Once school got over, college, choosing what you had to do for college was a really important thing. And my parents wanted me to be a CA or a lawyer, and I wanted to be in the movies. That was being idealistic for someone who's not from Bombay and does not have a godfather in the movie business. That's what my dad at least thought. But I nevertheless signed up for a media school for my postgraduate studies, and I lied at home saying that I was doing an MBA, for which they believed me. They also gifted me a car. So when one goes to media school, they would agree that your internship was the most crucial part of your curriculum. It was your foundation stone. It was your first outside exposure into the professional world you aspire to get into. I took my internship seriously, and I landed one with Mr. Dibakar Banerjee, who was an up-and-about filmmaker back then and even now. So Dibakar Banerjee's team exposed me to 2 setups. One was the ad films, and the other was the feature films. So the ad films, people were going chaotic to chase the need of a client or a marketing need. And the feature films, people were going crazy to chase the vision of the director or the storyteller. So I drew my own conclusion from this and said, okay, if one needs to be in the creative business, one needs to do some things for his stomach and one for his soul. So the stomach pays the bills and the soul satisfies your original storytelling. So with this learning, I wanted to start my own company. But internships were not paid for back then, and to make matters worse, my parents found out that I was no more an MBA. So they cut me off my pocket money. So here I was in Bombay, high and dry, with a car at my disposal, but with no money, wanting to start a company. Not knowing what to do, I called a couple of boarding school friends, and they told me, hey, why don't you drive down to Hyderabad? We can help you sell your car and get you money to start a company. So I thought that was a great idea back then. So I drove from Bombay, reached Hyderabad into this place where I didn't know anybody apart from 2-3 friends, and we sold the car. So once my dad got a whiff of this, he was so furious, he came and took away all the money from the sale of the car. So he gave me the opportunity back then to either come back to the farm and take over the family business or try my luck in media. I decided the later. So I took up a 1-bedroom hall kitchen and I did the Bombay struggle in Hyderabad. And then I started positioning myself as this kid who worked on a cult film called Love, Sex or Dhoka, the story of our lives. LSD was a cult film for its time. It was the country's first digitally produced film. So I learned that in my internship, and I saw how content could be very cost effectively produced. So finally, that unpaid internship started to pay off. I started bagging some video assignments in Hyderabad for boring service sector jobs. And this started to, make me feel very encouraged that my stomach was getting fed. It was very empowering to earn your own buck. So once the project started coming in, I put a label to my services and called myself Shoelace Films. For some reason, people thought I produce content only for shoestring budgets. That's a myth I'm trying to break even today. So once the stomach started getting fed, the soul started feeling hungry. And I was trying to figure, how do I do my original storytelling? At that time, the mediums for storytelling were three. Film, which had huge barriers to entry. You needed a lot of money and contacts to get into films. TV was still neutral ground and digital was a new concept. Nobody understood it. This was back in 2011, 2010. So I decided to choose the mid ground and started researching about television. I couldn't relate myself to the soap operas and the fiction television that was happening in India, so I decided to put my focus on non-fiction entertainment. So in non-fiction was mostly boring documentaries or reality television shows made very classically. So when I started doing research about these reality television shows, I realized that these reality television shows belonged to some European production houses and were licensed globally and were billion-dollar properties. So I asked myself, why doesn't India have an indigenous format which is globally licensed from the non-fiction TV world? So this research made me meet my mentor, Mr. S.T. Prasad, who was an IT tycoon from Hyderabad. Now, Mr. Prasad understood intellectual property and software, and he told me, like software, content also can be programmed and licensed globally to be monetized. So this got me very interested, and I started looking at content very differently. So before I could even know it, Mr. Prasad hired me, and very soon I went to one of the world's largest content trading platforms, which was Khan. I was 24, just after my internship, being exposed to this world. It was very overwhelming to see what was happening. And not knowing what to do, somebody gave me a book to prepare for this market, because it was a very big market. And I read that book, and it spoke about three gentlemen who made these three shows: Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Big Brother, and Survivor. So these three people had one thing in common, and that was they risked coin and limb to make a prototype of their format, and that made them billionaires. So I was very aspirational after I read that book, and I went about in the Cannes market saying, okay, now I'll also do this. But I realized everybody there put money where their mouth was. They already prototyped and were pitching their videos, whereas I was floating around paper formats and my PPTs in my laptop. So I realized people were convinced and were ready to put back their ideas with their money. So with this learning, I came back to Mr. Prasad and I wanted to tell him that we also need to prototype our ideas. These PPTs are not going to work anymore. But to my bad luck, Mr. Prasad and his team decided to lay me off and shut down the operations of this side of the business. So here I was without a job, and once again back to square one with my shoelace and shoestring budgets, not knowing what to do. But this time around, I had all the information exposure. So luckily for me, I was in Hyderabad. Back then it was Andhra Pradesh, now divided Telangana. But yeah, Andhra was the highest media penetrated state. When I say media penetrated, I mean there were the highest number of mobile users, internet users, highest number of movie screens, and there were almost 60 television channels in Hyderabad. So content was a buzz, and I became a valuable commodity. So one of the television channels approached me to come be a consultant, a content consultant. They were making local travel and lifestyle content. So I decided, okay, great, I got an opportunity, so I started consulting for them. But nobody took a 25-year-old consultant very seriously. So I was being ignored. Finally, I fought my way to get a show produced on my own over there. And they asked me to leave my consultancy job, which was a very nice paying job, and was very comfortable. So they asked me that I had to, leave my job and take up the risk of producing this show, which was 6.5 hours of content. That was 13 episodes, 22 minutes each, an entire TV season at really basic, meager budgets. So it was a challenge and a risk which I decided to take because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. So once I got this opportunity, I reached out to my longtime collaborator, Rohan Thakur. So Rohan and me go back to my media school days. We got each other's vibe and we creatively understood each other. So we jammed over a couple of beers and came up with this idea to document the entire lower Himalayas. And Rohan, being from the region, had also not explored his roots. So it was like a right back perspective to his roots. So I found it very interesting and I said, yes, chalo, let's do this. And Rohan and his then girlfriend, now wife, Bharti, set off on a 4-month expedition across the lower Himalayas to film this. With very little hope, with very little money and a lot of hope, we came back and completed that project. By the time we finished making this show, the channel we produced it for shut down. Now we didn't know what to do, and it was a very confusing situation to be in. We had put in so much effort, love into making this show. After months and months of pursuit, the channel finally gives me an offer to buy back the show at 5 times the cost I produced it. So this was a very dark and low phase in my life. I had no money, I was crying, cringing, trying to see how I can, get this show out. I didn't know how to face my collaborators because I was the producer and I had to be responsible for seeing the content meeting its due. So not knowing what to do and seeing my obsession, again another boarding school friend of mine comes to my rescue and takes me to his uncle, who's a shipping magnate in Bombay. I recite my story to this gentleman, Mr. Georgie Abrao, and he magnanimously offers me the money to go buy back my content. Later, I learned that Mr. Georgie also was an alumnus of our school. What were the odds? Before I proceed, I'll show you a glimpse of the show. You guys tell me if it was worth it.
This is the Himalaya, which literally means abode of snow. It's the last frontier, the king of all mountains. Here, species have thrived and gone extinct, civilizations came and then destroyed. But the mountains, they have seen it all.
Lights out, it's a cold Sunday morning.
My name is Rohan, and the mountains, my home. I believe that before one takes a step outside into the paths unknown, one must truly understand where he belongs.
I feel like it's open.
This is my winter, a winter where I explore and film my own backyard through travel, adventure, music, practically anything that can slow time down for me. You can call this my quest for redemption, my path to inspiration, a test of spirituality, a way to become a young fool again. Because this is my way back home.
Lights out, it's a cold Sunday morning. I think it's snowing now. No more cellular phones.
So I went looking for my soul and I found way back home. And once I bought back this content, I had an equally Herculean task in front of me. I needed to find a distributor and a broadcaster to carry this show. So this was produced in 2013. And luckily, for the merit of the content, it finally found its way to a TV channel in Bombay called Pepsi MTV Indies, which licensed it exclusively for a year. But Indies being Indies didn't have the marketing budgets. So the content took time to surface to its merit. Today, Way Back Home is one of the largest licensed properties from India. It's licensed to some of the largest content markets in North America, Canada, China, and is also making a Hindi version redubbed in this July on Epic Television. So the risk I took 4 years back paid off, and I gave it its time. So if you believe in something, you need to really, really believe in it and give it its time. And while you give it its time, you need to have fun. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. So that's what we started doing. When we ran the digital marketing campaign for Way Back Home, we saw that the content had a lot of stickiness with the digital medium. And that's what digital allowed you. It allowed you to have your own mandate. And we saw a lot of people looked up to Rohan as a lifestyle pioneer. And we decided that there were a lot more people like Rohan, and those are the stories we chase. Today, Way Back Home is actually my roots to innovation. It's because of that I have a cult digital media company with almost 25 original formats such as these waiting to find their place in the world. Now, if you look back at my journey, I would like to emphasize on 3 particular things which everyone should apply. One is invest in your relationships. You cannot make it alone in this world. You need friends and collaborators. And while you use your friends and collaborators to reach somewhere, you also need to give back and help them realize their dreams. So it's a give and take. So invest in your relationships. 2, luck and timing. However talented you are, you need to have luck and timing on your side to learn how to identify opportunities and take that chance. 3 is to keep doing. Unless you keep doing, you will never know your successes and failures, and you can never innovate. And 4th, an unsaid rule is necessity. Necessity is the mother of all, not invention, but innovation. So if your back is against the wall, that's when you truly innovate. Think of the last time you were in a tight spot. That's the same intensity you need to have to make things happen. Before I conclude, I would like to acknowledge my team and my lovely wife, Afshan, who constantly inspires me and motivates me and reminds me to have fun. She told me something with which I would like to close. She said, Asad, the day what feeds your soul also feeds your stomach, that's when you've truly innovated. Until then, the hustle continues. Thank you.